You don't look at them as iconic characters. I mean, they refer to them as that if they become that. You're just doing you're on a day-to-day, running it, having a good time and trying to make it work. Well, I like a lot about Snake. He's an escape artist, is really what he is. And he's doomed to never be able to escape the one thing he wants to escape from, and that's himself.
I'm not a fool, Pliskin.
Call me Snake.
He's got this equal amount of psychosis and survivability. They go together. I like that about Snake, or at least I felt that that was true about him. We started out doing some stuff that ended up not being in the movie. It was a train station sequence, sort of establishing the character of Snake. And he had a partner and got shot, and Snake actually ran back to help him. They caught them. It was a redeeming quality is what we were showing there. John Carpenter decided, correctly so, that Snake didn't have any redeeming qualities. So I only cared about, pleasing John and hopefully trying to capture something, that was going to fit into his vision. We had done Elvis together, and we just automatically sort of had a quick language amongst ourselves. John said, go, see what you come up with. Thinking about that character, it was futuristic stuff, The black and white was much more interesting than green fatigues, as if the war had taken place in a sort of a burnt out winter area. So it was all black and white. But then I got to thinking about the snake, and I thought it was, a cobra with its tail going down. Because there was going to be this one scene where he's going to be in the arena fighting. I just thought it was appropriate to put the tattoo right on him, right up front. Just took the tail and let it go south. After we did a couple of takes of the first, in that train sequence, he came over. He whispered to me, he says, fucking character's great. And he was like, yeah, because I didn't really know how I was gonna sound. I kind of got look and feel and be, but the sound of Snake.
You, me, and Fresno Bob. You know what they did to Bob? You want to see him sprayed all over that map, baby? Where's the president?
I mean, when there was Lee Van Cleef was playing the role of Houck, and so because of that, for me, I guess it just kicked off that sort of whole Lee Van Cleef, Clint Eastwood, Western world. I just always felt Snake was only talking to himself. He was never really talking to anybody.
You gonna kill me now, Snake?
I'm too tired. Maybe later.
It's a video game series called Metal Gear Solid. It was rumored that there's a character in the game that's inspired by Snake Plissken, and they actually do the voiceover.
Well, it's like, look, I'm pretty lazy by nature. Remember, there have been many different times when people, wanted to do something. I don't know, I'm a movie guy. You get to understand that from my point of view, whether it's Elvis or Snake Plissken or Jack Burton or R.J. McCready, that was that project, that was that thing. You get into that mindset, you create that, you want to make that world happen. Just like I used to do interviews when Elvis was coming out, and they would say, come on, do a little Elvis for us. And, it's like, it doesn't work that way. You don't just slide in and out of Elvis. You go to work on it, you refine it, and then you do it, and you get paid for that. I come from a different era. I wasn't interested in expanding financially off of something that we had created or that I had created in terms of a character. And I get business people, sure. Oh, we could do this with that. We could do this with that, or we could do this with that. And I look at it and go, that's not written by John. That doesn't smell right. John's not here to do this with. Why am I? I'm not gonna do that. Let's go do something new. Let's go do something fresh. Let's go create another iconic character rather than saying, what can we bleed off of this iconic character? You don't look at them as iconic characters. I mean, they refer to them as that if they become that. You're just you're on a day-to-day, running it, having a good time and trying to make it work.
Anyone messes with me and the whole camp goes. Come on, child, burn me.
John and I had been talking, sometimes we'd talk about what he was doing next or what I was doing next, whatever. We got to talking about what he was doing next, this project called The Thing. He was trying to figure out who to cast in the character of MacReady. We, once in a while, hey, how about so-and-so? And he'd go, yeah, maybe, no. My best friend and brother-in-law at the time, Larry Franco, was producing it with John. And then finally one day, I think Larry said it to me first, because it was sort of like a hint, like a warning. I think John is maybe going to talk to you about playing that part. So I said, I don't know, is it a monster movie or is it a horror film? What is it? John said, no, this is from the book, Who Goes There? He said, yeah, The Thing was a movie 20 years, 30 years ago. But I'm not doing that. He said, no, I'm doing a movie about paranoia.
I know I'm human. And if you were all these things, then you'd just attack me right now. So some of you are still human.
But we were in two places primarily. We were in Hyder, Alaska, right across the street from Stewart, British Columbia. So we were working up on a glacier 26 miles up. Pretty exciting. You could look down 3,000 feet and see a bunch of trucks down there, he said. So just going to work was kind of fun. We were in Universal Studios on the refrigerated set. They wanted snow, of course, on the set. If you went above 28, 29 degrees inside, it would start to kind of melt. And we didn't want that. We all just sort of lived in this thing, basically Monday through Saturday. Kind of reminded me of the set of Backdraft, where we were in these fires, these man-made fires, But we got so used to the cold that when you went inside, you'd take your jackets off and stuff, and you were in your t-shirt, and it was 28 degrees in there, and you were like, you're coming inside to warm up, It was a pretty cold environment. I went into wardrobe and, because of the other things we'd done, I sort of did it with myself, just sort of came up with stuff and then showed it to John, you like it, And when I was in there, I noticed sitting over on this chair by itself was this enormous sombrero. And finally, at some point, I said to the wardrobe person, what's the deal with the sombrero? And they said, oh, that's your hat. I said, I'm not fucking wearing that hat. It's insane. What are you talking about? No. And they said, well, John's already been shooting some stuff with it. I said, what? He said, yeah, it's established. I said, that hat is established with what? You're flying the helicopters. They've already got some helicopter shots, but I went, oh, come on. I need a character to actually hang my hat on. And I said, that's the hat. I never loved the sombrero. No, I think it's perfect. There's a lot of things sometimes that somebody else sees that you don't see. You have to be open for these things, That one's a tough one because that's, it's just you wearing this big ass goofy thing on your head. But you see, that's where John had no fear because he knew how he's going to shoot it. And I started laughing at it and saying, yeah, he's a drunk. He doesn't give a shit. So he's got that sombrero on. John was never quite satisfied with the last scene. His main thing was he didn't want to do 2 hours, take the audience on a ride for 2 hours and bring them back to square one. When you're doing a movie, you don't know what you got. You kind of in general know what you got, but you don't know exactly how this is going to go together and what's going to come out of it. And of course, John did almost all the time because you got to understand, he's unlike most guys, he doing the music too. Interestingly enough, The Thing was the first time he didn't do the music, all the music. And he had Ennio Morricone do it. Many, many years later, if you watch the two movies back to back, Quentin Tarantino had Ennio do his music for Hateful Eight right off of The Thing. But the last scene, what we talked about a lot, we'd write out little different versions of it. What do you think of that? What do you think of that? We go back and forth. And we finally just got, I said, John, I don't know, I know you don't want to come back to square one, but it's kind of what it is. We don't even know if we're real. We don't know. I don't think the audience can figure it out. I think that's what makes The Thing great, is you don't know. What if this already happened? Are you? How would you know? And it all led itself down to what I finally, he said, go ahead. It was the last line I said, I think it's just like, why don't we just sit here for a while?
See what happens.
If they could figure a way to kill each other at exactly the same time, I think maybe that's the next step there. I forget who it was I was talking to just the other day. He and his brother, they did, when the moment's right. Where were you, Childs?
Where were you, Childs?
I like that. That's iconic, to have somebody be able to hold on to that for all these years, and that just speaks to me in 100 different ways. That, to me, was John at maybe his absolute peak as a director. That's really good filmmaking.
Oh, my God.
Tombstone is about a family, family of people that lived during a time when organized crime was being formed in the United States, and it happened to be in the West, and it happened to be those group of cowboys coming from Illinois, coming from the East, sort of a Quaker world. That's why they looked the way they looked, wore the clothes they wore, the hats especially. Tombstone, in terms of Westerns, was really exciting and different. A wonderful script written by Kevin Jarre. He drew most of what he wrote from periodicals and magazines and stuff. I talked to him a lot about it. He had this great way of understanding how these people spoke and lived, which I'd never seen before in a Western. Reading Tombstone, the first page said, "Forget everything you have ever read or seen about Westerns, it's untrue." And then afterwards, it continued to show you that. These people in Tombstone were dressed to the nines. They showed their wealth. Coming into a new town, they needed to know you were a man of substance, a good businessman, a good entrepreneur, someone they could depend on, someone who was successful. It was these things that I found in Tombstone to be the things that you wanted to learn about from the audience's point of view, how they spoke and why they spoke that way. One of my favorite things about Tombstone, when I read it, I said, man, this is really great screenplays. That during the middle of the conversation, everybody stopped and they looked up and they started to applaud. And that's what people used to do when there was a full moon. They'd look up and see a beautiful full moon and they just applaud. That was their entertainment. Men of that time were completely different people than now. American men. And those American men were coming from Europe and places from all over the world. And here was this group of men who were figuring some things out and saying, hey, if we get this together, we can run this show. And there's not much anybody can do about it.
Well, well. How the hell are you?
Wyatt, I am rolling.
Now it's being considered one of the great Westerns ever made, so I'm happy about that.
How can people say that is the number one Western?
I can't say that, but I like hearing that, and more people are saying that now. The impact of the movie, well, I give that to one story, and I don't mean to say this as in any way a put down, although there were certain people involved, Kevin Costner not being one of them, Kevin being a good guy, but there were other people involved with that were not good guys to me. Once I said, hey, how about if we do this and that, maybe we could do some things together. I said, I could kill you and yours, and you could kill me mine. This one individual said, oh, we're gonna kill a lot of people in Wyatt Earp. And there were some people standing around me, and it was just such a slap in the face, and I thought, fuck you, buddy, I'm gonna take you on full force, full frontal nudity, let's go. You're now gonna run into Wyatt Earp. So those two movies came out fairly close to each other, Wyatt Earp and Tombstone. Great things about both. But there's one undeniable thing. You name me another Western where you can recall as much of the dialogue as people can recall from Tombstone. It's not even close. Much more so than any other Western. That's undeniable.
I didn't think you had it in you.
I'm your huckleberry.
If you're asking me if it was great working with Val Kilmer, who played Doc Holliday on Tombstone, the answer is absolutely. In those days, especially, when you were working with people, you'd get them, sometimes at the end of the show, you get gifts or trade gifts. It's not mandatory. It's not something that, you've got to do or that they've got to do. And so I asked my driver to see if he could get a hold of Val's holster and gun and hat and chair with his name on the back, take a picture, and then in that picture, I wanted to have this thing. It's the end of the show and it's been a battle and we've all, gotten through it very well. And I give Val this present and he looks at me and he turns to his driver and he says, give it to me. Because what I had gotten Val was a plot at Boot Hill. What Val had gotten me was an acre of land overlooking Boot Hill. Doc Holliday is all about death. But Wyatt's all about life. It's in that last scene. Just looked at each other and went, well, I guess that pretty much says it all.
Thanks for always being there, Doc.
There's been a lot of things written about Tombstone that are just so, even books that I just look at them, people have no concept. Even people who are working on the show don't even know and then never will. Every movie, every show is difficult to do. It's generally going to be a collaboration. Trust is going to be either earned or found or not. And like any other movie, it's a miracle that it gets made. Finding solutions to problems was a constant on Tombstone. The difficulties that we were able to figure out solutions to. All that matters is that it got done and that the impact that the original screenplay promised, we got about 90% of that.
Fair lady, your chariot awaits.
You've been eavesdropping?
Eavesdropping and can't help it here. I think I belong in the latter category.
Quentin's funny. I like his way. And I've had fun every time we've worked together. I appreciate every time he wants me to work with him, and he's completely unique. One of the reasons Quentin Tarantino got into making movies is because of John Carpenter. I mean, I know that from the horse's mouth. John's more reserved in his humor and in his style. Quentin is very, very outgoing, but there's a lot of similarities too in what's driving their mojo on making a movie. It's not like a director who's searching for a vision. They've got it in their head, and it's just a matter of them having the freedom to say, I like that, don't like that. It's easy for them. I remember something Quentin said one time. It was really cool. Jennifer Jason Leigh and I were giving him an award for costume design. And he came up and he said, it's funny for all how I'm known for the style of my movies and what it looks like. He said, not one of my movies has ever garnered a nomination for costume. And he leaned in and he said, but we fucking own Halloween. You're not gonna have a more fun time than you have on a Tarantino show. That's a wild ass circus. We finished the show in Austin. We'd been working for 3 months, 4 months, I don't know. And the next thing I know, he wants to do like 3 weeks of this car stuff. And he didn't want to do any CGI or anything, so it's going to be old school. I've driven cars all my life. When I was a kid, I won a world championship in a race car. I can do anything you want in a car. It was a month maybe we were up there, and Zoe Bell's on the hood of the car at one point. We're doing 80, 90 miles an hour, and you're on this little 2-lane highway, whoop-de-doos. So the camera car is here. I can't be behind the camera car. I got to be over here for the shot. So I'm now in the oncoming lane. So you're closing off all entrances for let's say a 3-4 mile run. And one day I get the okay, okay, Kurt, bring it ahead, let's go. And I said, everything's shut off? Yeah, everything's shut off. Here we come down the road, and I don't know what happened. I can't remember what happened. I either saw something or felt something, and boom, I just slammed the brakes on and came, boom. Guy goes by about 50 miles an hour the other way in the lane I was in. We just pulled over, was sitting there for a second, took the keys out of the car. See you tomorrow. Give me that guitar.
Music time's over.
Whoa!
John, the Hangman Ruth. There's a cool doll on him. Quentin had written something that he wanted to do a reading of. Sure, that'd be a fun day. We do that, but the next thing I know is kind of like the whole day, and it's feels more like a rehearsal than a read through. And it's like, okay, and well, we're gonna do it again tomorrow. I got nothing to do, sure. And now we're halfway through the second day, and then I begin to hear the boom, boom, boom. And I, wait, what did you just say? And I'm talking, I think it was Walton Goggins. He goes, yeah, we're gonna do a reading in front of some people. I said, oh, okay. He probably wants to he wants to have somebody see this and say, it's just. And then the next day we show up, and it's at I think it's called the Ace Theater or something. It's like 1,200 people. So it's a reading in front of this fucking audience. And he said, yeah. So then I just said, okay, so this is now a play. So I said, so bring it all down about a third. And he said, just about a third, yeah. I said, got it. And I said, when he's dead, I said, I'll lay on the floor or something. He said, yeah. But that was where it started. And then a couple months later, I guess, I didn't know. I thought that was just something he wanted to do. Maybe he wanted to do it as a play. Then we gonna do the movie, and then, okay. And he wanted me to play the part. So I said, okay, great.
Wouldn't transporting her be easier if she were dead?
Well, no one said the job was supposed to be easy.
And why is her hanging proper so important to you?
Let's just say I don't like cheating the hangman. He gotta make a living too.
I got bored with myself in a take one day on Death Proof. I'm reading this soliloquy of some kind to this girl. I started feeling like doing it like John Wayne, sort of a bad John Wayne.
In my book, that's no good.
I figured he was just going to start, all right, got it, shut up. I can't take it. I said, yeah, that's the way I was hoping. And he said, okay, great, now that's great. Stay right there and go back to the beginning. And and I did the whole thing like that. Then he said, now just take the first third of it. And they said, if we're out of film, he said, throw some film in the camera. And it's like, that's sort of what it's like working with him. And so this character, John Ruth, sort of had some of that to him. In the reading, I had done some of that. Then when it came time to do it, he said, okay, now drop that and just do your thing.
Lucky devil.
Christ, that's awful.
Interesting bravado. But he was the character was very tired. He'd been up and he was on edge. He should have listened to himself even more than he did. Both Hateful Eight, I think, and Death Proof are going to be movies that are some of the ones that are more looked at 20 years from now.
I got a 4-man team here, Rick. If I need more than that, I got to get it approved. And I got to look after my dudes.
Hey.
I did have the great pleasure of, he called up and said, I want you to read something. And I went over and read Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, sitting there in his Hollywood lair. He just loves the history of everything in Hollywood. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know if there's anybody left alive who can appreciate this as much as me. And he said, I know. As he wrote in his dedication in the book, it was a lot of it drawn from some conversations that we'd had about my relationship with my stuntman. And in one in particular, there was a relationship my dad had with a stuntman, Irwin Neal. A lot of true things there. And those shows that I'd done, my dad had done and stuff that Quentin gets a kick out of. It's just what he's able to do, take things and turn them on their head. And then as the night, we had a couple drinks and the night went on. I think DiCaprio came over that night and maybe Brad Pitt, and probably 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. He's like, all right, good night, I gotta go. And on the way out, he says, oh yeah, and I want you to play Randy. I said, Randy, who's Randy? He said, the stunt coordinator. I said, I never even saw it. Okay, I'll be there for Randy. He's something else.
You said you loved my mother.
And that I did. My river lily, who knew all the words to every song that came over the radio.
I mean, look, when I saw Ego the Living Planet, I said, well, that's gonna be tough to say no to. I didn't want to wreck that, what was gonna be a franchise. I'd done things at Disney's where I'd done, as it were, part 1, part 2, part 3. They had done real well in the first one. I said, I don't want to come in here and put an end to this thing. You want to make it go.
Larry, you drove your Porsche here tonight, didn't you?
Yeah.
Now, how would you like to trade that Porsche for a mint condition 1952 Mickey Mantle rookie card? I know you've always wanted one.
Is this thing real?
Oh, yes.
It's a deal.
I thought so.
Santa Claus is one of my favorite characters ever. It was so big in our household. My father's presentation of it as a mystery, I infused that greatly with Chris Columbus, who was an absolutely fabulous guy. I'm very, very proud of that Santa Claus. I read some things about it. They were, a nice pat on the back. Is Kurt Russell the best Santa Claus ever on film? And I thought, yeah, he is. You want to see Santa Claus? That's the real Santa Claus. There's no bullshit to it. He's a real he was a real person. He was a saint. He was a real man. There's a certain amount of respect and fear that children automatically have of him. It's so fascinating when I was in full regalia there. And some kids would once in a while come by and from a distance they're staring at you. And then I say, come on up, right? As they got closer, they do that. It's like, yeah, when Santa Claus comes around, drops off the present, your ass better be in bed asleep. So I felt like this is a great character to play, a great, sweet, wonderful saint of a man who is a real person. It's not a comic book character. He's been around longer than anything.
Why do you know more than the finest physicists, geologists, and zoologists on Earth?
Don't know more, but I got a good idea about what's going on. Didn't do enough about that when I had the chance. Figure on making up for that now. Or die in the trying.
The show is about the people that are having to now deal with the fact that there are these monsters. It's happening. It's happening. And you go back in the history of the lore of Godzilla, Mothra, King Kong. This is much more about dealing with the people who are generationally connected. And it was a casting idea, which was never before had 2 known actors father and son, played the same person. They approached Wyatt and myself. Once we clicked to the casting idea and we said, okay, let's talk about it, then it became the heavy lifting of what are we gonna do with him? That's what you see as this unfolding mystery of this guy who should be 93, 94, 95 years old. What happened here? And now we're answering that question. This is about the people that are, living with the aftermath, living with what's next. We thought, look, can we make this world a good adventure drama? And can this character be a good, strong part of that?
So we chase Godzilla, then what? More people die? We can't stop him.
Stop him. Jesus, Kate, I'm trying to help him.
Because we're playing the same person, we never worked together. So I had a day off. I was thinking about going hitting golf balls. I thought, well, you know what, go see what Wyatt's doing. So I went down there and it was a fight sequence. And I'm suddenly realizing, this is the execution. This is where the rubber's hitting the road. This is what the audience is gonna see. And I need to see this. I need to see what he's doing. Whatever he sets in motion, I'm gonna have to continue. If he decides to start playing things like that, okay, well later on in life, maybe it's not that much, maybe it's not that big, but I'm gonna have to do a little of it too. And I found myself watching this actor instead of my son and saying, this guy's good, man. This guy's really good. It reminded me of what we had to constantly be aware of, which is this is not father-son, this is the same person. And it wasn't until recently somebody said, we've looked around and that's never been done before. For us, that was the fun that we had with it. It's real easy with Wyatt. It's fun and it's easy. Thanks for watching this for however long you did. And I hope you check out Monarch. I think it's worth checking out on Apple Plus. Oh, guys, out.